Welcome to Three Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. Today, we're going to talk about Monday Night Raw from August the 15th, 2022. So the only real note is that WrestleMania tickets are on sale now. I don't know why they're on sale so early, but I mean, I guess because they have to sell 2 nights now. So they just like, hey, we're going to wait 8 months in advance. But other than that, there's no real news. Vince, of course, they talked about the $5 million that Vince now has that he's apparently used in 2007 or 2009, and how that has been tied to maybe the Trump Foundation back when Trump was involved with WWE for the Battle of the Billionaires and all that kind of stuff. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, come on. We already know that Vince and Donald Trump go way back. They go back to the 80s. I mean, he gave his friends some money. So what? Unless it was illegal, which some people are claiming that it is, then we'll talk about it when the charges are filed. But until then, I'm done talking about Vince and all this money stuff. It's just kind of pointless to me, you know. We don't have facts. We just have a bunch of speculation, and people are trying to make the most out of it because, you know, you're trying to generate clicks. So I'm going to wait until information is actually brought out before we get into it. All right. So Judgment Day. All right. Judgment Day starts Raw. Rhea Ripley is wearing a suit. Rhea Ripley and Sonya Deville. They look really good in suits. In other words, what am I talking about here? I'm tired. Anyway, Rhea Ripley said that Judgment Day runs Raw, and that is tough on reality for the Mysterios, and she proved that she is Dominic's poppy. And I'm like, oh baby. Finn Balor says he doesn't get why people love the Mysterios, and that Dominic got his soul crushed by Rhea Ripley, and that that he beat up Ray, so they won't be here tonight. Which of course means they're definitely going to be there. Damian Priest said you won't see Edge, because where is Edge right now? He's out in Toronto promoting his first Raw match in 10 years. And that, you know, Edge says that he's going to need Judgment Day to help him. He says that he's not going to need Judgment Day at all, and that he doesn't need anybody to beat up Edge to put the final nail in Edge's coffin to send Edge back into retirement. So there will be no Judgment Day with him next week. Rey Mysterio then attacked them from behind and did a fairly good job fighting them off. He had a chair, but Rhea Ripley was the constant thorn in his side because he couldn't hit Rhea Ripley with the chair. He also couldn't punch Rhea, and Rhea distracting him allows the rest of Judgment Day to attack him from behind, and he ended up getting this really nasty coup de grace from the top rope onto the chair, which looks very safe for Finn Balor, but not very safe for Ray. And Ray just, you know, got his ass kicked again. Look, I'm actually liking the Judgment Day now. I was concerned during the Vince era that these guys would kind of get screwed over. But since Triple H took over, he has done a good job of really getting some heat on Judgment Day. They actually sound legitimate. They look legitimate. Finn Balor's promos have actually gotten better. He has a little bit more passion in his voice. Damian Priest is very good too. Rhea, of course, is very good. So I'm liking the Judgment Day Mysterios thing. They also did a good job with using Rhea as a problem. Because now you're going to have to bring in a woman to side with Edge and the Mysterios to deal with Rhea Ripley. Now, we know that's going to be Beth Phoenix, but they're doing a good job of building that up. That, you know, Rhea can't beat up, or can't be beat up by any of these men. So somebody's going to have to step in to handle the Rhea Ripley problem. And they're doing a really awesome job of wanting us to really do something about Rhea. You know, and I've seen people online, of course, oh, Ray gave Nia Jax a 619 and Ray's smaller than Rhea, so it should be okay, but so is Finn Balor. But it should be okay for them to beat up Rhea because they're smaller than she is. I'm tired of this. Let's just do the intergender stuff. And they don't understand that they probably can't, not just because of TV PG, but also during some other things that we'll talk about at some other point that might not allow for them to do intergender wrestling matches and stuff like that. But it's a good way to build up a female presence. You know, it's good storytelling. That Ray, as a good guy, doesn't want to beat up Rhea Ripley anyway. And we can go back to Hulk Hogan body slamming Sherry if we, which is fine, and got really good cheers. But it probably would have been better to put somebody else over to have to deal with Sherry. And that's just a different philosophical way of looking at things. So they're really going to put over Beth Phoenix as being sort of the hero who's going to save the guys from Rhea Ripley and to keep their chivalry intact, that men, especially big, strong heroes, don't beat up girls. So, okay. And then because Beth Phoenix is a woman of size, similar to Rhea Ripley, that ought to be very fun. I'm looking forward to the Beth Phoenix Rhea Ripley collision. I wonder how they're going to do it. Are they going to do it in a tag match? Or are they going to do it in a one-on-one match? I'm very interested in how they're going to do that. So this was really fun. Of course, this story does not go any further than this. Like, they started the show with this, and then none of these people are seen again. None of these people are seen again for the rest of the night. First match, Asuka and Alexa Bliss versus Doudrop and Nikki Ash in the women's tag team tournament. Asuka wins with the armbar, a very interesting looking armbar she used on Doudrop too. Bianca Belair was actually in the corner of Alexa Bliss and Asuka, setting up, of course, the match for next week, which will be Asuka and Alexa Bliss versus Dakota Kai and Io Sky in the tournament. Okay, so they've done a good job of really building up this tournament and actually treating it like it matters. Of course, this match was too long, but this is just, if I'm going to just start saying the matches are too long, I'm going to be saying that a lot. There's one match on here that was entirely too long. I'm just talking too fucking long, but we'll get to there in a moment. But they had Tamina and Dana Brooke watching this match, even though they're already eliminated. I have no idea why they're watching it, but they were. Maybe that means there's something going to happen later. But Bayley and her crew came out on the ramp and kind of mocked the Alexa Bliss, Asuka, and Bianca Belair trio, and the referees very quickly got involved to separate them. Now, the referees didn't do anything when Ray was out there getting curb stomped just 15 to 20 minutes prior, but just because these women were arguing with each other, the referees and all the officials like, oh no, we can't let this happen. It's like, why did y'all let little ass Ray get stomped out just 20 minutes ago? He got beat up for like 5 or 6 minutes. Nobody did anything. Why nobody help Ray? What's going on here? Makes no sense. Somebody actually noticed that Bayley is wearing Rob Liefeld pants, which means that she's wearing basically pants from Cable in the X-Men, where there's like hundreds of pockets on this thing. She seemingly has like, I don't know how many pairs of these pants. It wasn't until somebody told me that she's wearing these really baggy pants with hundreds of pockets, so I actually started paying attention to them. And I was looking like, wow, she does. She look like Bishop or something like that. Like, why is her pants got so many pockets? Like, what's going on here? All right. Very odd decision that they made here on this Monday Night Raw. Theory had a promo where he talked about being the undisputed handpicked future of the business, and that he had a bit of a miscalculation at SummerSlam, but he still has his Money in the Bank briefcase, and he won't make the mistake of giving it up without becoming the youngest WWE champion in history. He is then confronted by Dolph Ziggler, who confronts him and saying that when he was Mr. Money in the Bank, he really earned it, and that it was not handed to him like it was for Theory. So he was offended that Theory was basically gifted a Money in the Bank ladder match, even though Theory did kind of win the match legitimately. Anyway, Austin Theory called Dolph Ziggler a has-been and said that he won't screw up. Once he becomes world champion, he's not going to screw up the rest of his career like Dolph did. And then they fought. They got into a fight. And for some odd reason, this was the main event of the show. Dolph Ziggler versus Austin Theory. And look, okay, they sort of began a feud between these two. Sure, I can buy that, but I don't think this has main event cachet, and it wasn't even announced as the main event. It wasn't even promoted as the main event. It was just these two guys got into a fight earlier this night, and now they're going to have a main event match. Either way it goes, Theory versus Dolph Ziggler was a very good match. Hell of a match, showcasing what both of these guys can do. The rolling drop kick, which Theory does, was countered into a Fameasser by Dolph Ziggler, which is very fucking cool. But I love the finishing sequence as Theory wins with the 8-count down finisher. Good match. Really good match. Theory comes back and wins, which is always a thumbs up for me. Shows that Triple H has actually not fully given up on some of the Vince guys. And that, maybe there's some secret plans for Theory. Them giving this match away on TV just kind of felt like, well, we got to do something, because they have been building this up. But this is not over. I don't think so. I don't think this is over. I think they're going to continue doing the Dolph Theory stuff. But Theory working stiff with Ziggler, calling him a has-been and saying that he ruined the rest of his career after he became the world champion and all that kind of stuff. Man, that's tough language. That's real tough language. That was something. All right, the second match, Champa and The Miz versus Cedric Alexander and Mustafa Ali. This match was entirely too fucking long. Come on, bruh. Seriously. This is work rate central right here. Earlier in the night, Miz and Champa had to admit that he was close to winning the United States Championship, but they don't give participation awards around there. The Miz blamed AJ Styles for Champa losing and said that because he interfered, they gifted AJ Styles with a championship match. But he has a gift for Champa for getting very close, and it was a necklace, a sort of card this idea that he stole from Logan Paul now. Whereas him and Champa, I guess, embracing, it's a weird looking card. And he gives it to Champa, and during their entrance, they bump these things together. like the Hardys used to do with tag team titles. They just bump them together. Cedric Alexander and Mustafa Ali. Let's talk about it. Because I saw a story over the weekend that there will be no Hurt Business. That Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin are going to be separated. And I just looked at this and said, we're sitting here talking about how to repackage people nobody cares about. Nikki and Doudrop and Champa and people like that. We're talking about giving Shotzi her tank back. We're talking about all of these things. We're going to correct all of Vince's mistakes. And yet we're going to not go back to the Hurt Business. We're not going to go back to the Hurt Business. Are you telling me that this is the idea? Now, I'm not saying that WWE is doing this. It's just all speculation at this point. But I don't like that. I don't like it. I like the Hurt Business. I prefer the Hurt Business. I don't care about Doudrop's name. I don't give a shit. All right? I don't give a shit about Shotzi and her tank. I like Shotzi, but tank, not really necessary. She's a heel. Why does she need a tank? What does she need a tank for? Is she going to run people over with it? She going to shoot stuff with it? Like, what's going to happen? We'll figure that part out. But if we're going to fix mistakes, mistake one should be Hurt Business. We should bring them back together as baby faces. That could be very good. Especially considering you got Judgment Day. Especially considering you got the Bloodline. You're starting to put together factions. We kind of should have the Hurt Business. Like, I know that, maybe Lashley doesn't need them. It's not the point. That's not the point, okay? The point is, we all like it. So give us back what we like. They didn't have a long run anyway. It's not like the Hurt Business was together for 15 years, like the New Day or some shit. Just bring them back together, man. Just, come on. Just a little bit. Just a tip. All right. Never mind. But this match was too fucking long. I was hoping that Cedric Alexander was going to get teamed up with Mustafa Ali, with Shelton Benjamin. But instead it ended up being Mustafa Ali. Okay. There was a tiny balls chant for The Miz. Every time The Miz face showed up on this evening, there was a tiny balls chant. There was a great spot where Mustafa Ali did a 450 and it was interrupted by a knee strike from Champa. That was a great spot, which led to the fairy tale ending. Of course, Champa and The Miz win, but this match was entirely too long. I like that The Miz joined Champa on the self-applauding spot. That was great. And he started patting him on the back. The Miz is he's just a underrated treasure. You gotta love The Miz. He knows how to help get other people over. And he doesn't give a shit about, he knows that helping others helps himself, keeps his career longer too. So it's great. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed The Miz and Ciampa working together. I didn't enjoy that this match was so long, though. Look, I like Cedric Alexander. I think he's a good worker. I think Mustafa Ali is a good worker, but these guys are not presented as dudes you want 10, 12 minutes out of. It's just, there was nothing from these guys. I would rather see them do character stuff and build a partnership rather than them go out there and do 10 to 15 minute matches. Sorry, I'm just not going to be that guy. This show was entirely too long because of this stuff. All right, so we got an update of Ezekiel, and we got something that was truly awesome, a truly fantastic moment in which Ernie Jr. Says that when he gets his hands on Kevin Owens, he's going to give him a piece of his mind. And Ernie Jr. is Ezekiel's dad. And then there's a picture of the entire Ezekiel Elias family. And they're going full Nutty Professor with this thing. This is tremendous. I bitched at Triple H, what was this, last week or 2 weeks ago, about how he was killing Ezekiel because, Ezekiel is not a wrestler guy. But he showed me that I was wrong, because he's saying, fuck you, Mongo, we're expanding it. We're not just doing Ezekiel and Elias. We've got this guy in drag. He's going to play the mom. They also got him digitized as being a smaller kid. We've got another brother with a push broom mustache who everybody thinks is Elrod. Elias was also present, and there was other people present. So there's an entire family of these guys, and this shit fucking rules. All right, everybody in the family looks alike. It's great. All right, it was short, but it had impact, and it was funny, and it was memeable. Like once you saw it, it was a very short promo, but once you saw it, everybody kind of clipped that part and was sharing it around social media. Of the little kid with the hat turned back, the mom crying, Elias with the fake beard. It was hilarious. It was great. And now we know that Kevin Owens is apparently going to be fighting with the entire E family. I don't know. I don't know what the hell we're calling it, but this is great. I wonder how they're going to pull this off. Like, they're going to have to do, but this Nutty Professor thing is great. I'm glad somebody thought of it. I wonder how they're going to pull it off in the arenas and stuff, though. Like, that's like, you can do it on the screen, but how are you going to pull it off in the arenas? Like, how are we going to bring back Elias? That's the question, because Elias is a wrestler, unlike the other family members, where you could do basically vignettes and skits that involve the other family members, where it's basically just going to be like scenes out of the Nutty Professor. But when it comes to actual wrestling, maybe Ezekiel is going to be the only wrestler, therefore we don't have to deal with how to deal with Elias, so, but this was very fun. That was great. One of the highlights of the show for me. I'm not going to hold you up. All right. So what other people thought was the highlight of the show? Drew McIntyre and Kevin Owens had a promo battle. McIntyre, he's on Raw for reasons unknown. And he's talking about, this match isn't taking place on any fictional island. It's going to be taking place on my island. And how he's going to be a fighting champion. I'm going to defend that title on Mondays. I'm going to defend that title on Fridays. I'm going to defend that title everywhere. It's what it deserves. Then he starts talking about his back injury. He says he does have a back injury because he's been carrying the load of 20 men for over a year. And he's there to scout opponents on his day off because he loves this business. He has such passion. Kevin Owens interrupted, said that this isn't medieval times, that Drew McIntyre doesn't know who he is. Sometimes he wears a kilt. Sometimes he carries a sword. He's not sure who he is, but I know exactly who I am. And he says, I've been the same for the last 22 years of my career. But over the last few years, I've been focusing on having fun. And there's a side that's been missing to me. A side that's been missing for too long. He said he missed the old KO. It's time to bring him back. Time to bring back who people call the prize fighter. And it's enough is enough. It's time for a change. He hasn't been a champion in 5 years. And that if Drew McIntyre does win, he's going to be coming for all of these championships. He's going to come for the Intercontinental title, the United States champion, all the championships. And then Drew McIntyre says that I'm tired of people saying that I got called the chosen one by some guy online. It's like, no, you got called the chosen one by Karrion Kross. Why can't you say his name? I get called the chosen one by some guy on Friday. I'm tired of people. I was the chosen one 15 years ago, and I got fired. I had to work to bust my ass to get back here. And He says that, I don't care if you're a prize fighter. I don't care if you're a champion. I don't care if you're a superstar. You're a pro wrestler. I don't care, sports entertainer. I don't care what you are. We're wrestlers in a wrestling ring. Just like freaking wrestle. And everybody was like, ooh, there's so many, the W word. They said it so many times. Oh my goodness. And it's like, I don't know, I guess. All right, whatever. Do your thing. I mean, whatever. So they agreed to have an impromptu match. Kevin Owens versus Drew McIntyre. It was a pretty good match. In a disqualification, of course. Because the Usos decided to jump in and beat up Drew McIntyre. He fought them off and then got stunned by Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens then goes over to the Usos and says that the tribal chief owes him one and left the Drew McIntyre on the floor. Okay, perfect. The Usos get back into the ring to beat up Drew McIntyre, only for Drew McIntyre to magically revive and kick their asses again. Beat him up and basically throw him out of the ring. Pretty bad night for the Usos. This is continuing what the internet has, said was going to be the resurrection of Kevin Owens as a Triple H guy. And I've been, thinking of this, like, who's going to be Triple H's first really world champion? Like, I'm not really going to count the next guy who wins the world title as being a Triple H guy, because mainly it's going to be storylines that Vince already put in motion. And plus, I think it's going to be Cody. So, I'm just saying who is going to be the guy that Triple H thinks is the guy. And for a lot of people, they say it's Kevin Owens. And this Kevin Owens resurrection is going to be the Triple H who thinks that Kevin Owens should have been a top guy. And that's where he's going to go with it. And it's seeming like that's true. It looks like that's true so far. He's kind of separated Kevin Owens from the whole Ezekiel clan. And he is now mixing it in with Drew McIntyre and the top guys. And, I'm not opposed to it. I don't really like Kevin Owens, but I'm not opposed to Kevin Owens mixing it in with these guys. Especially considering I know he's on the outskirts of it. Him, like Karrion Kross, they're on the outskirts of this whole thing. I don't think either one of them are in a position to be world champion right now. I think that the Roman spot is so well protected that the first guy to beat Roman is going to be made. After that, it's going to go back to being pretty normal, who your champion is going to be, that kind of stuff. But you're looking at a kingmaker situation when it comes to Roman. And it seems like that spot was made for Cody right now. Even though there's a lot of people who think they're going to separate the titles because USA Network wants to have their own champion. And somebody even said that USA Network pitched an interim Raw World Champion or something like that, and WWE shot it down. Look, I don't know if that's true, or how the hell would I know? The point is, I can see that Raw needs a main event superstar, a singles world champion. I get that. And Roman is not really making that many appearances on Raw. And then Cody, who was the fresh talent that they brought in, that kind of took over a lot of the bookings of the WWE champion, he got injured. So, yes, I can understand why USA Network might be a little miffed. It's like, okay, you guys took away our world championship, and, you're not going to give us Roman. But then, you gave us Cody, which was great because he was the hottest guy in the company. And he did all of the great press, and they was putting him all over everything. And then he got fucking hurt. So now they're like, okay, now we got nothing. All right, we want something. We need something. You have to give us something to promote. It's, endangering Raw. I get that. But I think that, I'm not sure that they're going to separate the two belts yet. I think that they're still carrying two belts because they will be separated. I think if they wanted to have one belt, it'd probably be one belt by now. So something tells me they might actually do what they did before, where they had two belts and Daniel Bryan had two belts and they just created another belt, the Universal title. They might do that again, where they just create another world championship and it's called something different. And this is kind of their way of getting rid of the Universal Championship. And they're going to fuse it with the WWE title, and then Roman Reigns will just be the WWE champion. And then there's going to be another championship going forward. But I think that's going to come later. that's kind of how I feel like it's going to come a little bit later. Maybe even around Royal Rumble WrestleMania time. They'll create another championship. Because they do have the draft coming up. They're going to mix up the rosters a little bit. That ought to be fine. That ought to be in like 2 months or something like that. That ought to make USA happy for a little while. But I don't think they're in a rush to drop the belts to Drew or anyone else. Now, a year and a half ago or something like that, I probably would have said Drew McIntyre has to be the guy that beats Roman for the title. And I still feel like that is good, especially if it's going to take place at Clash at the Castle. Yes, Drew should theoretically still be the guy. But I think that when you have a situation where you had Cody and he comes in and he has this wave of momentum and he's got so much momentum that everybody, and his mission statement is to become the WWE champion, that it is in the story that they have for him, which is, from undesirable to undeniable. That's something that works perfectly against the backdrop of Roman Reigns, who is one of the two chosen ones in this particular instance. Roman was, bred to be this world champion, and Vince loved him. He's a Vince guy. Vince pushed him when everybody else wanted to give up on him, while Cody was a guy Vince gave up on, and then he worked his way back. Drew is still kind of the chosen one. That's how he ended up getting his second chance. But since they're trying to separate Drew McIntyre from that chosen one archetype, and Roman is that, it makes more sense for Cody to beat Roman than it makes for Cody to beat Drew. You understand what I'm saying? Like, for that storyline from undesirable to undeniable, for that to work, he has to overcome somebody that the company was really, really pushing. Similar to the storyline where John Cena was the company guy and CM Punk wasn't. When John Cena was the company guy and Bryan Danielson wasn't, and Kevin Owens wasn't, Roman is now that guy. Roman is in the John Cena spot. He represents the company. Other people have to now represent hard work and determination and the work ethic, the blue collar aspects of that side of the conflict. Cody is perfect for that. It's just, why would you give Drew the belt then, or both belts, however that's going to work? Why would you give him that spot when part of Drew's character now is that he's a fallen chosen one, that he was the guy that Vince thought was going to be, the top guy. But then he fucked it up. He, had all of his problems and he ended up getting fired and he ended up coming back. It's not the same. It's not the same. Look, I get it. Drew is a chosen one. He was labeled that. I know he's trying to reject it now, but that's what he was. That's who he is. And the fact that he fell first and had to claw his way back up is a great character moment. But that's who he is. Roman didn't have the fall, so now we have to, it's a pure story for Cody to beat Roman. And that's kind of how it has to be. Wouldn't beat Roman before Cody, as far as I'm concerned. They could do some slick shit and have Drew win the belt in front of, his home crowd and in England and all that kind of stuff. And that would be a great moment. But I don't think it's not an all-timer, in my opinion. It's a great moment, but it's like, Bulldog winning the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam in 92. That was a big moment. It was great, but it's not like he won the world title, right? He won it in the main event of the show, which was great, but he didn't win the WWE Championship, So I think that Roman should be protected for Cody. Cody should come back, win the Royal Rumble, win the title at WrestleMania. And from undesirable to undeniable, whatever you do after that, it's probably going to be Triple H. But them taking the title off Roman now would not make any sense. That doesn't mean they won't do it, but I'm not a fan of it. I know some people are sick of Roman. They're sick of the titles not being on TV. They're sick of the part-time schedule. They're sick of this. They're sick of that. USA Network, everything. Yes. Maintain your story, please. Take the criticism into consideration. But say, look, after April, everything is possible. Kevin Owens is possible. Karrion Kross is possible. Anything is possible in April after WrestleMania. Until WrestleMania, we need to get Cody to the title, make that moment happen where Cody goes from undesirable to undeniable. He achieves his mission. His story arc is over, essentially. He creates a new angle for himself where he's the first member of his family to become a world champion. Now he has to be a fighting champion. And now you got guys like Kevin Owens and Karrion Kross, who now at this point has had several months to build up a reputation for themselves to challenge for him and his title. Roman can go away if that's what he wants to do. But we absolutely cannot, buckle under the pressure of, well, we sold all these tickets in Cardiff, so now we have to give Drew the belt. No, you don't. No, you don't. Don't do it. Don't give him the belt. It's too late. It's too late. He probably should have won the belt at WrestleMania, this year. Instead of doing Brock again. They probably should have did McIntyre, Roman, and Drew McIntyre should have won the Universal title from Roman. That's what it should have been. But that's not the direction they wanted to go in. They wanted to do Brock again. They wanted to do Brock and Roman title for title, which made no sense, but they did it anyway. So you missed your opportunity with Drew McIntyre. I don't care about Cardiff. I care about it in terms of it's going to be a big show. It's going to be great. It ought to look fine and everything. But from a storytelling perspective, you missed the boat with Drew McIntyre already. Don't fuck up the Cody story. For some people, it won't matter. As long as Cody wins the belt at WrestleMania, it doesn't matter who he beats. He could beat fucking Matt Cardona for the belt if they wanted it to. As long as he gets the belt. For me, it matters more if it's a certain person that he beats for the storytelling purpose and the poetic nature of it. He needs to beat Roman, as far as I'm concerned. All right, I'm finally moving on. All right, so Seth Rollins, he comes out there. He's still the revolutionary, still the visionary. Excited because he got a front row seat to the retirement of Riddle. Riddle interrupted, said that he's medically clear. The next time he sees Seth Rollins, the fight is on. Seth Rollins then jokes that every time they've been in proximity, he's beat up Riddle and stomped his head. And he says that he's always 2 or 3 steps ahead of Riddle, and he may find him and stomp his head again. But Riddle proves that he wasn't 2 or 3 steps ahead of him because he's not really in his mama's basement as Rollins thinks. He's really in Washington, D.C., and he's going to kick Seth Rollins' ass. So he runs to the ring, and Rollins just kind of waits for him. They get into a bit of a brawl, and Seth Rollins tries to stomp Riddle's head on the announce table. Riddle escapes and chases Rollins up into the crowd, and that's kind of the end. So they're kind of trying to repurpose Riddle from being a sort of character to being a sort of serious ass kicker. Later in that night, Riddle challenges Seth Rollins to a match at Clash at the Castle, which, of course, is sort of the plan from the beginning. This is perfectly fine. My issue with this, of course, is that the fight scene. What should have happened is Riddle comes running to the ring, and then Seth Rollins just flees. He just gets the hell out of there. No contact between the two of them. I think the more contact you have, the less heat that you have. It's good that Rollins ended up fleeing and he ended up running away, but he should have ran away from the beginning. I think they just kind of dragged it out a little bit, but he should have just ran away from the beginning. Rollins as a character has been downplayed quite a bit over the last several weeks, where he used to be a centerpiece of Raw, one of the main guys. Well, he now just kind of feels like one of the guys on the show. He doesn't get a lot of time anymore. But his thing with Riddle should be pretty fun. I'm really looking forward to this match and seeing if Riddle's in-ring style is going to change. And if his presentation is going to change. Is he going to still be doing the silly Riddle stuff, or are we moving Riddle away from that? But he's still very over with the audience. And I really look forward to the Riddle-Rollins match. I just have a bit of an issue with the fight scene. I just felt like it was unnecessary, and that it probably would have been better if Riddle really ran to the ring and Rollins just kind of ducked out and ran away and left the ring to Riddle so the audience can cheer him. And he still got that moment, but it was like standing in the crowd instead of standing in the middle of the ring. In any event, there was a fantastic vignette for Lashley and AJ Styles. They told the story of Lashley being a man of militant discipline versus AJ Styles being a man of precision, technique, and unbreakable will. I was like, hell yeah. All right, I was juiced up for this match. Lashley versus AJ Styles for the United States Championship. Should have been the main event. Wasn't. It was actually at the 10 o'clock hour, I believe. Lashley wins the match with a spear. Clean finish. Champa and Miz had come ringside and distracted Lashley a little bit, but not much. Dexter Lumis jumped the barricade in this match. Now, interesting thing, they had been sort of building up to more Lumis again. During the Theory Ziggler fight scene, there was a hand in the background. There was during Drew McIntyre's walk backstage on his way to the ring, there was like a weird fire extinguisher went off, and then Dexter Lumis jumped the barricade before he got swamped by security. So they're keeping Dexter Lumis a mysterious figure in the WWE, but they did mention him on commentary. Jimmy Smith was talking about Dexter Lumis trying to make his name. And then Corey Graves was kind of like, just don't talk about it, just move on. They're trying to treat him like a fan who jumps the barricade, where they mentioned them, but you don't really mention them. You don't want to give them any press. You don't want to give them any attention. It's a nice little touch. It's also a nice little touch that they actually just noted who he was. So did you notice part of the show? I was actually on board with them not mentioning it at all. Like, why would you even mention it? But at the same time, I was like, okay, well, they want people to know that it's part of the show. So, because they know that fans have jumped these barricades before, and it wasn't part of the show. So they're letting people know that this is part of the show. He was supposed to be there, and we do know who it is, and all that kind of stuff, and why. All right, fine. So I recognize that, but that was it. He popped out on The Miz. So apparently, I guess Dexter Lumis is going to be involved somehow with maybe AJ Styles or The Miz or somebody like that. But since this is the second AJ Styles segment that he's kind of jumped out at, but they're keeping it ambiguous of whether he's a babyface or a heel. Like, we don't know if he's trying to attack The Miz, who also was involved with last week's segment, or is he trying to protect AJ, or is he going after AJ? We don't really know yet. But it seems from the way that they're positioning things that he's after The Miz. Because after The Miz loses the previous week, you see him trying to jump the barricade and he gets arrested. The Miz is actually about to attack AJ Styles this week when Dexter Lumis jumps the barricade. And he kind of spooks The Miz, who backed away. It was great. It felt like he didn't know it was going to happen. So that was excellent. The match was perfectly fine. Great match. Very solid. This match had some time, which was good. It was the right thing to do. Lashley wins, of course, right decision. Where do we go with AJ from here? I don't know. Maybe it's this Dexter Lumis thing. Miz, Dexter Lumis, AJ, Dexter Lumis. We don't know yet, but at least they're doing something very interesting here. Okay. So Dakota Kai, Io, and Bayley are backstage. Dakota Kai is about to make her Raw debut. She goes over to Dana Brooke to ask Dana Brooke if she's ready, and Dana Brooke is ready 24/7, and that she's not scared of them and their pockets and all the stuff that they've got going on. And Dakota Kai says she should be scared. I'm like, I don't know why. Why should she be scared? And then Dakota Kai defeats Dana Brooke, and they they took the opportunity to tell us this is a non-title match because Dana Brooke is still the 24/7 champion, despite the fact that they said they were going to get rid of the 24/7 title. More speculation from the internet. I do believe they will get rid of it, though. I don't think they see any purpose for it. They're not going to do any hard comedy like that. I guess the 24/7 gang is being broken up, and they're just going to save Tamina and Dana Brooke from that group, and they're going to do something different with them. I'm really interested in what they're going to do with like Akira Tozawa and R-Truth and all those guys, because they haven't been seen since then, but they may be used as job guys. But the Dana Brooke versus Dakota Kai, which I'm surprised didn't go 15 minutes. I'm just surprised this match wasn't super long, because it seems like they really want to show off what these women can do. Dana Brooke is not a good actress, by the way. She's very bad. Very, very bad. But Dakota Kai is also not good. So Dakota Kai wins. It was nothing. Nothing gained, nothing lost. It was fine, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what their plans are for Dana Brooke and why she's still there, but she is still there. So I guess they'll figure it out. So the last thing I want to discuss is the vignette for Edge and Damian Priest next week, which was immaculate. It was fantastic, and I really look forward to it. And they're doing a good job of cross promoting here, because Edge is going to have his first match in Toronto in 10 years next week on Raw. But this is going to coincide with Edge's biography on A&E and the episode of Rivals, which is going to feature Edge and John Cena. So there's going to be a big Edge-heavy content next week for WWE. They're going to do the biography, then do Rivals, then have Edge's first match in Toronto in 10 years versus Damian Priest on Raw. Great job of them putting all of that together. Even if it was by accident, it was still very well done. You know, that was excellent. So WWE is doing the right thing. Maybe they're giving a little bit more of an opportunity to tell stories and do longer form stories, but I can appreciate what they've done so far. But this Raw was very shout on storytelling. This Raw was again very long on match time. They didn't do a lot. So if you missed Raw, you didn't miss anything. Nothing really happened, which is not necessarily a good thing about the show. I mean, the makeshift main event, which felt like it was thrown together, that wasn't really even promoted as a main event. While it was a good match, you're really asking a lot for people to stay tuned in for Theory versus Dolph Ziggler, a guy who's not really all that over. And Dolph Ziggler, who, when he was called a has-been, everybody was kind of like, yeah, I agree, he's a has-been. You know, this felt like an NXT TV match, in which case, you know, they didn't really do a good job of putting both guys over, especially in comparison to the vignettes and stuff that they did for Edge and Priest, or Lashley and Styles, where they was doing vignettes and stuff for them. They didn't do any of that stuff for Dolph Ziggler and Theory. They should have done that. You know, or at least announce it as the main event and then built up through it throughout the night, instead of just having, oh, Theory's back. Hey, look who it is. All right, so a lot of the internet speculation about, you know, Austin Theory getting his name back and all the name changes and stuff like that, it's all great speculation, but WWE is all about branding. They're already doing some changes in terms of no longer using sports entertainer, which is, you know, clunky language. Wrestler is simpler. It's a brevity, you know. So that's fine, but you don't want to change the brand too much. And you do have brands you want to make sure are perfectly fine, but Nikki Ash does need to change, and so does Doudrop. Both of those names need to go away. Both of those characters need to go away. Nikki's character needs to go away. Now, I'm of the opinion that you can't have two crosses, so now that Cross is back, you can't have a Nikki Cross too. So you can change her name again to something else, but Nikki Ash as a superhero needs to stop. That needs to go away. Doudrop could be just shortened to Double D, which I think would be a great name for her. It's a little bit of a play off of Triple H. You can't call her Piper Niven because there's already a Piper in the WWE universe, that being Roddy Piper. Yes, he's dead, but you don't want to have people saying Piper Niven, Roddy Piper. We don't want that. The same thing with Austin Theory. Give him a different name. You know, I know his real name is Austin. You don't want to use that because it's a real name anyway. So just change his first name to something else, you know, and give him a first name, but you can't just have a guy called Theory. That's stupid. Same thing kind of with Matt Riddle, you know, where it's like, I don't like just calling the guy Riddle. It would be nice if you gave him a worked first name or something like that. Riddle's a silly character anyway. So you could do it like Cosmo Kramer, where he stumbles across his birth certificate and it finds out his name is not really Matt Riddle anyway. It's really like Kevin Riddle. And he's like, dude, my name's Kevin. I had no idea. And you could be like, well, his parents were stoners too, or some shit. And they've been calling him Matthew, thinking they named him Matthew when his real name was Kevin, or some stupid shit like that. You know, but, you know, the single names we can do without. I know Champa doesn't want his first name back because Tommaso is kind of silly anyway, but Tommy Champa. It could sound like a mob boss, which might actually work if his name was Tommy Champa. But, there's some of the changes that I've heard about that I'm actually in favor of. There's some of them I'm not, but we'll see. we'll see which ones actually get changed or not. I'm actually for the 24/7 game being broken up. I think it's run its course. I'm for a lot of the name changes that people want to happen. I'm for a lot of those. But I'm still on edge about some of the people Triple H chooses to push. That's kind of my thing. It's a sticking point with me. This whole Johnny Gargano is a huge star that we need to spend a lot of money on. I'm not a fan of that. I don't think that's true. I'm okay with them pushing Champa. I'm fine with that. I didn't want him beating Lashley, but I'm okay with him getting a push. Dakota Kai, not a fan of that one. EO, I am. I'm a fan of EO. Kevin Owens, I'm okay to a point. I think he's a solid Intercontinental Champion. Will be a great United States champion. I'm okay with him beating Lashley because he has some credibility. He fought Stone Cold Steve Austin in the main event of WrestleMania. He's a former United States champion. He had some really good matches with Roman, former Intercontinental champion. He's got a name. I'm okay with him beating Lashley if it were to come to that. But I'm not okay with him becoming WWE champion anytime soon. I just don't see it as something that's possible right now. But they're still doing a slow progression. They're not, whiplash changing everything. So that's good. But let me know what you guys thought. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.